Well, this meeting is the beginning of a process of discussion and consultation. It's not to finalise anything, but there was a great deal of common ground, a great deal of unity among the Conservative MPs who came together today. Very, very clear, everybody was very, very clear that the commitments made to Scotland must be honoured. That, of course, is the government's position and the Prime Minister's position. But I think Conservative MPs are very, very clear about that as well, for the avoidance of any doubt about that. The commitments made in the referendum will be absolutely honoured. I think there's also a good understanding that there are natural consequences of devolution for the rest of the United Kingdom. It's a matter of fairness to all the nations and all the people of the United Kingdom. And that is why we are saying in the Conservative Party that decisions made in Parliament that only affect England, or only affect England and Wales, should only be made by the members of Parliament who represent those parts of the UK.
So as Leader of the House of Commons, you can envisage a Commons which would have some MPs having less say than others, a kind of double-class system?
Well, of course, there are already two classes of members of Parliament because of devolution. There are some who are voting only on what happens in other parts of the United Kingdom, as well as the broad UK issues, and some who can't do that. So there is already a distinction between different types of members of Parliament, and this issue of fairness for England, as well as for Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, I think is now one that cannot be avoided. That is something we now have to face up to.
It doesn't necessarily, though, have to happen at the same time as Scottish devolution. I mean, there's a very tight schedule now that's been promised to Scotland. This other English devolution hasn't been promised. Why are you trying to tie the two in together?
Well, it is, again, an issue of fairness that these things are considered at the same time. The commitment to Scotland is very clear. That will go ahead, and that will go ahead, and even whoever wins the next general election. But it ought to be considered at the same time. That is why we say these things should be considered in tandem, what the consequences are for the rest of the United Kingdom. So the Prime Minister's also asked me, as you know, to head up a new committee of the Cabinet on this. This will meet for the first time this week on Wednesday. That will be Conservatives and Liberal Democrats working together in that committee of the Cabinet. But I envisage we will also be open to discussions, of course we will be, with the Labour Party and with other parties as well.
Some say it's being rushed through, though.
This is something that we've been discussing for a long time. I was advocating what we sometimes call English votes on English laws 15 years ago, when the Scottish Parliament was first created. We've had the Mackay Commission look at this issue under the current government. It's been discussed for a very long time, and the time has now come to make some decisions about this so that people all across the United Kingdom know that decisions will be made in a way that is more responsive to all of them, in Scotland, but in other parts of the UK as well.
But there was a promise made to Scotland and a timescale set. We know that there's going to be political disagreement over this, whereas there isn't political disagreement over devolution to Scotland. And isn't there a danger that you derail the whole process by bringing this argument into it?
No, we're all clear. We're absolutely committed to and we'll go ahead with the commitments made to Scotland. And this is an issue. The issue of fairness for the whole of the United Kingdom is one we raised in our election manifestos in the last 3 general elections. It is not something that has suddenly come up. The need to deal with it has become more urgent, of course, because of the referendum and because of the commitment to further devolution in Scotland.
So just so I'm clear, it may be that it won't happen in tandem, as the Prime Minister said, if there are objections to the English devolution, because he was very much saying that this had to happen in tandem.
Well, I think if other parties make it impossible to deal with this issue in tandem, then of course it will be an issue at the general election in May, and the people of the country will decide. But it's then very important for all political parties to decide where they stand on this, including the Labour Party meeting in Manchester this week.